Nearly 150,000 workers at the country's big three automakers may be just hours away from clocking out with no plan of return. The United Auto Workers Union is threatening to strike over stalled contract negotiations. The current contracts expire at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Kris Van Cleave reports from Dearborn, Michigan.
Countdown to a shutdown. Without a deal, auto workers will go on strike at Ford, GM, and Stellantis plants at midnight. Negotiations appear to be stalled.
The big three can afford to immediately give us our fair share. If they choose not to, then they're choosing to strike themselves.
I think they're preparing for a historic strike with all three companies.
Ford CEO Jim Farley.
What their initial offer is to pay our hourly workers about $300,000 each and to work 4 days. That would basically put our company out of business.
Do you feel this has been a good faith negotiation?
It's hard to say what word because we've never really seen this before.
The UAW is seeking up to a 40% raise. The automakers are offering about half that. Also on the wish list, a 32-hour work week and the return of pensions, non-starters for the companies. Also, phasing out concessions made in 2008 when the car makers teetered on the verge of collapse. The big three are on a roll of big profits over the last decade, more than $20 billion so far this year alone.
Corporate greed is the problem. Our membership is fed up and fired up.
The fight is playing out as the auto industry is going through a major shift to electric vehicles. EVs require less labor to manufacture, and workers tend not to be unionized, meaning labor costs for competitors are significantly less.
We're falling behind further and further.
A Friday strike would leave third-generation auto worker Zach Van Vliet living off $500 a week in strike pay, which doesn't go far for a family of four.
How long until you start to really feel that pinch?
Honestly, I don't think it would take long at all. If we do go out, how long is it going to take to get a deal?
The UAW says without a deal, it will strike key plants belonging to all three automakers and then expand if necessary.
It's a dangerous thing to say you're going to strike just some plants but not others, because that's not how the industry can operate. And you will see more than just those plants shut down.
And Kris Van Cleave joins me now. Kris, any chance there could be a last-minute deal as this gets close to the deadline here?
Well, automakers remain hopeful, but we heard the Ford CEO say they're basically waiting for the United Auto Workers to call them back and respond to their latest contract offer they made earlier this week. So it's possible, but with every passing minute, John, it gets more and more likely that we're headed towards a strike.
And so what happens when the contract expires at midnight? Do they go back to negotiations? Do they cool off? What's the next step if this should happen?
About 10 o'clock Eastern time, the United Auto Workers will have a Facebook Live announcement as to what plants they plan to strike at midnight. That will give us a sense as to how widespread this targeted strike will be and what exactly they're targeting in the automakers' catalog. If they strike engine plants, for example, it'll just be a couple of days before the other plants start running out of parts to build vehicles, and that could then see additional plants go offline and those workers be essentially pushed out of work because of a strike elsewhere. The auto workers have said if they go on strike tomorrow, the union will not be negotiating on Friday, that they will be joining workers on the picket lines. They've got a big demonstration planned near the Detroit Auto Show downtown tomorrow. They'll be there. It's possible negotiations could resume on Saturday if there's a strike.
And I know there's much to be determined in how they're going to strike if they strike, but is there a sense of how this could affect customers and also how it might ripple across the community?
Yeah, we were talking to a supplier today that provides tires and wheels to the automakers. He said basically his company, if this is a short strike, they'll deal with inventory stacking up. They can focus their workers on maintenance and other things. He said this goes on for several weeks. They've got to start thinking about layoffs, and that's the last thing they want because it's very hard to recruit and retain workers right now. They feel like if they lay people off, they risk not having them come back. So that's one supplier. We talked to a restaurant owner across the street from a Stellantis plant. very worried about what it means for their business. If folks don't go to work, they don't stop in there to have a drink after work or to have dinner. And if people are living on $500 a week strike pay, they're probably not eating out. So the ripple effect for some folks will be felt very quickly. For consumers trying to buy a vehicle, that could be a matter of a couple of weeks before it gets hard to find what you're looking for.
Kris Van Cleave reporting for us in Dearborn, Michigan. Thanks a lot, Kris.
Sure thing.